भगवान के पास भेज रहे हैं. Okay. So let your posture be upright but relaxed. So that's quite a subtle combination. Sometimes the posture becomes too relaxed, and sometimes it becomes a little uptight and strained. So let it be neither strained, neither nor floppy and slouching. I think you're all familiar with the posture, so I don't need to go through all the points of it. The main thing is to have the back straight, the arms a little away from the body, with the hands in the lap or on the knees, thighs. The head tilted, probably best to have it tilted slightly forwards. You will find in other traditions, sometimes the gaze is, the head is more upright and the gaze is straight ahead. But I think for us, for the moment, we can have the head tilted slightly downwards with the gaze on the floor in front of you. And the eyes closed is permissible, but just don't get drowsy. Slightly open is good, although that takes a little getting used to. Muscles in the face relaxed, around the eyes, around the jaw. Let the shoulders be level, let go of tension in the shoulders. When I said let go, it's easier said than done. If one brings one's gentle attention to the area, and let there be a sense of letting it go with the out breath. So a sense of stillness, sense of ease, but very importantly, a sense of being alert and awake. Since the essence, we might say, of meditation practice, amongst the many definitions you'll find, perhaps the essence is a kind of non-grasping awareness. And for that, we need to be attentive and relaxed. Not the easiest qualities to develop in our very hectic, busy modern lives. But something we must cultivate to stay close to being sane. Rather than the so-called default normal / insane situation that we are usually in. The second noble truth of the Lord Buddha, the cause of suffering, is often, in some traditions, just given as craving, grasping, craving, which is one of the most important facets of it. So that grasping, that holding on, that sense of what we might call uptightness, we need to be aware of that and gently let that go. So together with the stillness and the ease, the attentiveness, all of which have a somewhat or potentially seductive quality, we may really get attached to that. So at the beginning in the Mahayana, in the vast scope tradition, where we embrace all living beings with our attention and our concern, in that we remember our motivation before every session. And the essence of that is wisdom and compassion. Compassion, seeing the unsatisfactory nature which is creating so much suffering for beings, unenlightened beings. But somehow having a sense that all this is a little bit like a dream, not as real as it appears to be, and at least something that is impermanent and changing and changeable. So there are many ways to generate a motivation. There are many methods to develop this sense of concern and kindness, which are the motivating factors for practice in Mahayana, in the great vehicle, where we're not just concerned for our own happiness or liberation, however worthwhile those aims are. So one of the ways, and here one should be creative and in one's own time, of course, outside of the formal sessions with others, we can create our own motivations based on our own understanding and experience and that which moves us. Today I was thinking, you come across old family photographs, you see your parents, you see grandparents, then you think of their predecessors, all your ancestors. And then up to now, even if you just go back 3 or 4 generations, how many people are directly and indirectly connected with one? And through efforts, lifetimes of efforts, oneself is here now. And then the efforts of people in this life, which is, I guess, what most of us can remember. Not all of it, of course, but a lot of it. So you think of all that effort up to now, that those close to you and others have contributed to your welfare, to our welfare, our existence. You think of all of that effort, all that direct, indirect effort, which makes oneself what one is today, a living, breathing person with tremendous potential and opportunity to actualize that potential. So all of it due to the efforts, the kindness of others. Unbelievable. And then the question arises, what am I doing with this opportunity, which literally has arrived, in a sense, on the shoulders of the blood, sweat, tears, and so forth, effort of generations. So what am I doing with that? How am I spending my time? What would be the most worthwhile pursuit? According to one's gifts, obviously, one's perceived gifts. Or maybe we haven't discovered them yet, but what seems to you to be what you could best offer to other beings? Think about that for a little while. Reflect on that. What would you love to be able to contribute to others for their happiness, and which would make oneself happy too, because it's what one loves to do. And at a more basic, perhaps cognitive, philosophical level, if one is actually concerned genuinely with others, then really at that point one's own little problems fade away. So there's benefit for oneself, whether one wants it or not. So please reflect on this for a while as part of our motivation. And once you've reflected, you can just naturally, seamlessly go into the breath awareness practice. Just being aware of breath and sensations, not getting caught up in the thinking process, letting it go, coming back to breath gently, a light touch, not trying to grasp it or strangle it, gently aware of breath, a sense of letting go with the out breath. So motivation and the silent practice now. Occasionally check your posture if necessary. It's very easy for the head or the shoulders to go out of alignment. Be aware for any tension that arises. Just let it go with the out breath. We were speaking of the kindness of others. So we have two lots of edibles that are being provided by people, Sneha and Bob. So thank you. We'll go to the Buddha first. Okay. Of course, as part of the motivation and something that's useful, we're encouraged to remember every morning when we wake up alive is that that's very fortunate. Death is definite. Just came home again to one the other day. 3 days ago, 3 days ago, two people I'd known for a long time passed away. One was actually the co-producer of the Gandhi movie, the famous Gandhi movie by Attenborough, Suresh Jindalji. And the other was a delightful shop owner, bookshop owner, Mirza Yassin Beg, who ran the Midland bookshops in Delhi. There are 4 of them. We have a wonderful branch in Horsecast. And so they passed away. And one has spent many, many happy moments with them. Anyway, so they're no longer alive. And that's going to happen to us, all of us, one day. And before that happens, so maybe we'll, all of us, lose people we care for. So again, need to check, how we are spending our time. What are we doing in our life? Because, okay, those people were relatively old. Sureshji was 80. Mirzaji was in his 90s. But, no guarantee one will reach those ages. One can die anytime. And one might say that in this modern mechanized society, the causes for death are more than before. Even though there's modern medicine, the causes of death are many. So one should never forget that meditation on death. And Shantideva, of course, spends a lot of time on it in chapter 2, doesn't he? When he's talking about it in connection with unwholesomeness that has been created. That we're going to die. We don't know when. We've created a lot of garbage thoughts and actions and speech. And if we die with that on our consciousness without purifying it, then we're in trouble. And that chapter 2 is very graphic about that. He doesn't pull any punches there. And it very interesting contrast with the chapter before it and the chapter after it. The chapter after it is full of very poetic statements, very beautiful thoughts and aspirations, ending with, inviting all beings as one's guests. But in the middle, there's that very powerful reminder. It's inappropriate to enjoy myself, thinking that today alone I shall not die. Inevitably, the time will come when I shall become nothing. Just like a dream experience, whatever things I enjoy will become a memory, and whatever has passed will not be seen again. Of course, we have this sense of permanence, that things are happening in the same way. We have a routine, or it's the same friend today as yesterday or whatever, but actually it's not exactly the same. But we feel it's going to go on like that somehow forever. But it's not. So good to remember that. And again, another added reason for compassion for beings who are caught up with very solidly with friends and enemies and so forth, and who never think about death or think about it and then, of course, distract themselves with an entertainment. Which maybe some argue that's what a lot of entertainment is for, to distract us from the real questions such as death and so forth, of which we are quite alarmed and afraid of. Okay, back to chapter 6, the patience chapter. And what I'm finding more and more by looking at this text again is how wonderful it is how Shantideva combines both the reasoning as well as very beautiful, powerful statements, but there's always reasoning behind them. Or rather, what I'm trying to say is that in one sense, the motivating thought behind this text is highly unreasonable in one way, isn't it? You know, dedicating your life to the welfare of others, you know, caring about others more than oneself, all of that highly unreasonable from the point of view of ego or normal life. But here he is giving such amazing reasonings for not acting in a habitual, selfish manner. And this chapter, like the others, is littered with these reasonings. Yeah. So verse 67, we were looking at chapter 6. Should one person ignorantly do something wrong and another person ignorantly become angry with the person who's done that wrong thing, then who's at fault? Who would be at fault? And who would be without fault? Yeah. Who are we going to say, oh, it's your fault, or it's the other person's fault? You know, whose fault is it? What does Pema Chodron say about this? She says that someone might justify harming us, not realizing how much she's harming herself. And we might retaliate out of the same ignorance. So who's right and who's wrong? Aren't we both in the same boat? Yeah, in the same boat of ignorance, or if we're behaving in that way. So we have to realize one, they've created certain karma, we've created certain karma, and as an aspiring bodhisattva, this is a marvelous opportunity to not get angry and to generate patience. Rather, and I'm reading now from her translation, which she's taken, it might be slightly different from the version you have in front of you, verse 68. Rather, why did I do evil in the past that caused me harm at others' hands? All that happens is the fruit of karma. Why then should I now be angry? And so he's making his point clear again and again. Reiterating the point, the reflection on karmic consequence. This person and I have some kind of karmic debt. I could respond in a way that erases that debt and benefits us both, or I could keep the cycle of misery going. Choice is up to me. And we see this on the collective level, how we keep a cycle of misery going on. History, those of you who've even studied a little bit of history, you can see how these things keep on repeating themselves. You think something is settled, but somehow people don't forget, and the karma is not being purified. So you have situations where you can see how events that happened in the 19th and early 20th century, then they erupt in, for example, the wars that they had in Yugoslavia in the 90s, horrific warfare and destruction there. And we have it now happening in Ukraine. People keep on repeating the cycles, all cycles of fear, retaliation, and so forth. We keep that cycle of misery going. That is samsara, of course. Habituated to our bad habits and just keeping them going. You know, whereas we do have the potential, we have the intelligence, the awareness to be able to pause, stop, pay attention, and behave in a different way, based on reasonings. And also based on the fact that when we do stop and take a breath and stop thinking so much, especially in a negative way, automatically some kind of natural, I think, some kind of natural, you could call it intelligence or wisdom, arises. And we see how foolish we are. But often we don't stop and allow that to arise. So as she says, the choice is up to us, how we behave. But we are so programmed, I think, by previous behavior that it's hard to behave any differently. So he's saying then in verse 69, he's making an aspiration that, look, when I've seen this to be so, when I've reflected and seen this, I should strive for what is wholesome, what is virtuous, meritorious. Different translations are given. Sorry, I don't know the original Tibetan word, but meritorious, virtuous, wholesome. Virtue is that which brings the fruit of happiness, and so is merit. So both those words work. And a more general word is wholesome. So I should strive for what is meritorious in order to certainly bring about loving thoughts between all. So one should do that to foster in the hearts of all an attitude of mutual love. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Blessed are the peacemakers, says the Bible, right? Christ said that. Sermon on the Mount. Definitely, that kind of thing is the way to go. And one needs it more than ever now. And one often, sometimes you think, why don't, I was thinking the other day, and probably this is just total, some kind of fantasy, romantic imagination. Why don't not just one, but several European leaders and other leaders go to Moscow, speak to Putin in terms of, from their heart, and how important it is to, have mutual trust, and that he shouldn't be afraid. Of course, they would then have to change their attitude and give up their expansionist plans for NATO and so forth. Of course, there's many buts and ifs. But one wonders why politicians can't speak to each other in a direct fashion. Because even Putin's a human being. I mean, I think he had a pet that he loved and stuff like that. He's not an inherently evil person, through and through. There's one can't say he's 100% dictator, evil, etc. He's afraid. He has fear. And he's identified himself with the state. He was a KGB man, so he wasn't brought up in a monastery or reciting Mahayana prayers every morning. He was brought up in different places and in the KGB. So how do we expect him to think and behave? But he's a human being, and human beings are amenable to kindness. But of course, Western leaders will not do that. They'll go and act as cheerleaders for Ukraine, understandably. So people are not going to, unfortunately, bravely hold fast to virtuous paths and try and foster thoughts of mutual love in others. They're too afraid to do that, and well, not fear, but maybe they feel they have some kind of status, and why should they take that risk? Especially if someone like Putin were to, repudiate all of them, it would be loss of face, blah, blah, blah. So the thing just keeps on getting repeated. And if you keep up with the news, it's just unbelievable what is happening. I mean, the stupidity and the biggest nuclear power plant is in Ukraine, and they keep on bombing close to it, and it's already on an emergency power system because of Ukraine's infrastructure having been damaged so much. So one really wonders what's going on in minds of people, and one just has to say it's like when we get angry ourselves and it escalates, and it's hard to stop. Resentment, anger, anything, any unwholesome emotion, it escalates if we don't know the antidotes or the countermeasures. It just escalates, and this is what is happening here. Escalation based on lack of an antidote, and fear and habitual patterns. So rather than conning himself about his aggression and thinking, oh, aggression is justified, Pema Chodron says that Shantideva is going to devote himself to fostering an attitude of mutual love. And then an interesting insight, and that's the good thing about Pema Chodron, she brings her own life situations into the commentaries. She says that she once asked this very great Lama, who's still alive, Trungpa Rinpoche, how to work with my anger towards my mother. And he told me I should experiment for a while with resenting her and see how that felt. Then I should remember any kindness she showed me as a child and try appreciating her for a week or two. And in the end, I could make my own decision about which attitude to cultivate for the rest of my life. Not easy, huh? But interesting. Experiment with resentment. Really make a big deal about it. Go into, from a Dharma perspective, also watching what's that's doing to our mind. Spend time, analytical meditation on resentment. Oh, she did this, she didn't do that, or dad or anyone, in one's life. And then how does that feel? And then remember any kindness. If you can't remember any kindness, then imagine she must have shown some kindness. So the father must have shown some kindness, Even if the way he showed kindness was to storm out of the house and never come back again. Maybe that was best for everyone in one way. Anyway, I'm trying not to be foolish about it. But there must be some kindness one can remember. And if one has a resentment, against the whole world, then remember that we're alive today because somebody did something for us. Correct. Otherwise, we'd be dead. Somebody took care. So, and then we should do analytical meditation on that, rather than what we normally do, which is analytical meditation on our problems and how other people have harmed us, and so on and so forth. So, and then she says, then the Lama said, make your own decision. Very good. He didn't say, then you should by then be aware that, you have to love your mother. No. Check it out. Make your own decision. If you want to keep on resenting her, then that's your decision. Keep on doing it, and see what happens. So very skillful. 4, when a building is ablaze and flames are leaping out from house to house, the wise course of action is to take and fling away the straw and anything that is spreading the fire, right? For example, when a fire in one house is moved into another house, it's right to get rid of straw and such things that will cause the fire to spread. Likewise, when the fire of hatred spreads to whatever my mind is attached to, I should immediately get rid of it for fear of my merit being burned. Yes. So one should cool off when anger is already aroused. He instructs us to remove the fuel that causes anger to escalate, the tinder of wanting things our way. It's a good expression. That's what keeps things going wrong for us in the world. We always want our own way. We're attached to that. And when we look, and this is very important, when we look closely at our mind's attachments, and of course, anger is another form of attachment, right? Because it's not getting what we want. So we get angry. We can see they don't hold together without what she calls storylines, which means mental thinking about it. It's wrong analytical thinking. When it comes to the fiery flames of hate, we could cool them down by acknowledging obsessive thoughts and letting them go. And our tool for doing this is the shamatha meditation that Shantideva introduced in chapter 5. Do we remember that? in chapter 5. I don't remember that so well. The shamatha meditation. I remember a whole bunch of reasonings he was giving. Anyone remember the shamatha verses in chapter 5? Speaking of mindfulness, he speaks about being like a piece of wood when you feel like retaliating. Those things are there. Yeah.
Maybe Pema Chodron gave an explanation of some verse, which.
Well, 41, 42. Yeah. I mean, he's giving a lot of things I can see which are obstacles to shamatha in our daily life. For example, verse 46 in chapter 5 is very interesting, where he's saying, if for no reason I start digging the earth, picking at the grass or drawing patterns on the ground, then by recalling the advice of the Buddhas, I should immediately stop out of fear. So even those little things like that, he's saying they are distracting us. We're not going to be able to, produce a focused state of mind if we're constantly, dawdling and, distracting ourselves even in that small way. Yeah.
I think the first half is all about
the first half
like,
of chapter 5. Yeah, in one way. Sorry, verse?
27, 9.
Okay. Yeah, a lot on mindfulness, isn't there? The thieves of the disturbing conceptions. Yeah. I should never let mindfulness depart. Yeah, in that sense, yes. He's not giving action. Yeah, I guess that's one of the main instructions for shamatha. When mindfulness, verse 33, when mindfulness is set with the purpose of guarding the doorway of the mind, then alertness will come about, and even that which had gone will return. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And of course, that whole chapter has many, many things, like even how to eat food. Verse 92. When eating, I shouldn't fill my mouth, eat noisily, or with my mouth wide open. Shouldn't sit with my legs outstretched or rub my hands together. Yeah. Yeah, people do all sorts of things which are kind of distracting. And of course, a lot of it is for the sake of others. It's for the sake of others. Verse 107, chapter 5. I should impeccably put into action these different things in order to guard the minds of worldly people. The defining characteristic of guarding alertness, in brief, is only this: to examine again and again the condition of my body and mind. Verse 108, chapter 5. Yeah. And then he says you have to put it in the practice, not just read about it. So our tools for in meditation, we recognize when our mind wanders and simply return to being present. To help this process, we can add an additional step. We can label our thoughts thinking. So then you see it depersonalizes it. When you label it in that way, you're seeing it as a process, not as something that's taken hold of you and you identify with it. Okay, thinking. You feel like murdering somebody. Okay, you're just thinking. You feel some awful thought, thinking. It's just thinking. Or we think, oh, I had such a dreadful childhood, or blah, blah, blah. Just thinking. It's not real. The childhood is gone. But we keep it alive through distraction, through thinking like this, storylines. So this technique gently and objectively dissolves the stream of habitual chatter and its underlying beliefs. That's interesting. So chatter, this inner mental gossip, it has underlying beliefs, such as I am this or I'm that, or they did this or they did that, or the world is like this or like that, or life is unfair, blah, 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 whatever it is. There's an underlying belief system. And what would you say is the most deeply set belief system? Okay, here's a question. Open it up to everybody, including the onliners. What is our most deeply set belief system? Welcome to our friends from Turkey. So what do we think? What's our most deeply held belief system?
Existence of independent self.
Yep. Yeah, I would say, yeah. Anyone agree or disagree with that? Nivita said belief in an independent self. Independent self. Yeah, anyone agree or disagree? Anyone seconding that? Disagreeing with that? If you disagree, give reasons. If you agree, give reasons. Anybody? Come on, folks, wake up. I know it's Sunday morning, even in Turkey. Oh, good. Yes, our Turkish friend, Merve. Yeah, are you disagreeing?
I agree. I was about to say, I remembered Lama Zopa saying, like, this life is dreamlike. It's not a dream, but dreamlike. I think our fundamental ignorance, seeing things not as they are, existing in the way.
Yes.
So it's distorting how things exist, and from there,
So
just like a ball between desire and anger, let's say, aversion and attachment.
So you're saying that's coming from a belief that is not in proper relationship with reality. Yeah, we are getting addicted to something that doesn't exist. Is this what you're saying?
It exists, but not the thing that we see it.
Okay, so our perception is flawed, is wrong, right? There's something wrong with the way we see things, right?
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, okay. Yes,
Yeah.
Zenona.
Yeah. Yes. So I think the deepest belief system that we have is that we are alone, we are single, like we are unique, and that there is something which is called Zenona or Marve or Jan or Apurva. Like there is something inside us which is inherently us, and that is the cause of all suffering. That there is something that can get hurt. There is something, and it is not like dependent arising. It is individualistic. That belief is the one that hurts us the most. Our ego self, if we can say.
What was that last thing you said?
Like maybe we can say that it is like the ego.
The
like,
ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have this term self-grasping ignorance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-grasping ignorance. We totally believe that. We believe that ignorance at a very instinctive level, at a very deep level, even though we may have heard some teachings or reflected, it's still just intellectual knowledge. And deep down, we do feel, don't we, that there is something to protect, something to be, to strive for in a certain frantic way, you know, to make it happy or to protect it from problems, right? Yeah, good. So that's our fundamental belief. So whenever we have any kind of sensation, I guess, a sensation or a thought or memory or a expectation or a hope or a fear, we can label it, because it is a concept or a thought, or it's connected with a concept, a thought, or an image. And by labeling it, she says, we gently and objectively dissolve the stream of habitual chatter and the underlying beliefs. like removing the tinder from a burning building. It deflates the powerful surge of energy before we become inflamed. Here, of course, she's specifically talking about hatred, anger, but it applies in a very general way also. You know, when you think of something in the past, you start feeling sorry for yourself. Thinking. It's a thinking. And let it go. Back to the breath. Otherwise, we just keep on building up that sense of a person who is hurt, has been hurt, is hurt, will be hurt, and so therefore we can't relate to the world properly. If that's how we, think, if that's our belief, okay, then there's always an enemy. There's always a problematic situation. So you can see how it works on an individual and a international level. You can understand, I think, if one goes into this even a little bit deeply, how leaders can behave the way they do, and how therefore they, react in certain ways, which we find initially very unreasonable. And of course, which then get out of control, and it's just horrific what's happening now. And it's kind of information overload. But what's happening in Ukraine and what's happening in several other places of the world, it's just unimaginable. I mean, it's like being in heaven here in Delhi, even though Delhi is supposed to be. Of course, Delhi is not the same for everyone, but where we are in Delhi right now, it's a kind of a little heaven compared to a lot of places in the world. Good temperature, no one's bombing us, we have electricity, we have food, and friends, Dharma friends, we have the Dharma. It's unbelievably fortunate situation. And those of us who are not here at Tushita can join us online, so that's something. She says, she just says, and this might be useful for those of you who have the book or might get the book. She's written a very good book called When Things Fall Apart, which is, you could say, what's happening right now in the world. And it's always been happening, but it's especially happening now. So chapter 4 there, she says, for instructions on meditation. Then verse 672, and then we'll have more discussion. What's the time like? Well, verse 72. Isn't a man relieved when, though condemned to death, he is freed, his hand only cut off in ransom for his life? Enduring likewise merely human ills, am I not happy to avoid the pains of hell? Are you getting this? Why is a person condemned to death not fortunate if they are released after having a hand cut off? Why am I, who am experiencing human misery, not fortunate if by that I am spared from the agonies of hell? Understand that? Is it clear what Shantideva was saying? You understand that? You don't? Okay, it's like what we suffer. Well, would somebody like to explain? Someone here at Tushita? Explain that verse.
It's saying we are already suffering.
Yes.
So why would we want to continue to suffer? Like if your hands are cut, is it like for giving you a reprieve, but you have to cut your hands to live? Why would you want to?
Yeah. Someone is being spared death and said, okay, we'll just cut your hand off, but we'll spare you from death. And Shantideva is saying, we have these human sufferings, and he's saying, because of them, am I not happy to be avoiding the actual hell realms through having this human suffering? That's what he's saying. So he's saying, actually, be happy with your little human sufferings, because through suffering that, you're avoiding even far greater suffering, unimaginable suffering of the hells. Whereas if we get angry, I think next verse he might be saying this, Yeah, if pains of even this, my present life, are now beyond my strength to bear, why do I not overthrow my anger, the cause of future sorrows in infernal torment? You know, if I'm having a problem facing human suffering right now, how am I going to face the sufferings of hell? And actually, I am creating the cause for the sufferings of hell by getting angry. So he's saying, why don't I overthrow my anger, which is the cause of hell? You know, I can't even bear minor hardships now. How am I going to bear future suffering? And yet, through ignorance, I keep on creating the cause for hell. Future sorrows in infernal torment is how it's put in this translation. And how does, what's the translation in the Padmakara book, please? The Way of the Bodhisattva text?
I can read it.
Yeah. Verse
73 or
73.
If even these my present pains are now beyond my strength to bear, why do I not cast off my anger, cause of future sorrows and infernal torment?
Okay. Yeah. Why am I why do not I not restrain myself from being angry, which will be the source of hellish misery? Yeah.
72 is also, I think, a little clearer in this.
Okay, please, yeah.
Is it not a happy chance when condemned to death, a man is freed, his hand cut off in ransom for his life? And is it not a happy chance if now, to escape hell, I suffer only the misfortunes of the human state?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Yeah. So, in other words, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says in one of his books, we should adopt the attitude of liking suffering just as we like ice cream, he says. Like, if you like ice cream, you know, then you should like suffering, human suffering, not hellish suffering, human suffering. Because through experiencing it with fortitude and without complaining or retaliating, we burn up so much unwholesome karma, which would otherwise be a cause for suffering after death. It is painful, however, she says it is painful to refrain from anger. It takes courage. This is Pema Chodron's commentary on verse 72. When the hook of grasping Shenpa, she's using a Tibetan word that she uses sometimes, somehow the magnetic attraction to a certain way of behaving, when that is strong, then we long to talk indignantly among our friends, to yell at our enemies, and to fuel the anger with our thoughts. So Shantideva acknowledges the pain of not striking back by comparing it to the horror of having a hand cut off. But the pain of refraining is well worth it. It's like losing only a hand instead of our life. It allows us to calm down and avoid the pains of hell. And verse 73, why don't I overthrow my anger? Yeah, the cause of future sorrows. The message here is the same. By putting up with the relatively mild short-term suffering of the detox period, we forego far greater agony. The key is taking responsibility for our actions. Our future well-being depends on what we do right now. And then, again, in one of these verses where he keeps on reminding us of how miserable and awful samsara is and how we've just been perpetuating it again and again. He says, for the sake of satisfying my desires, I've suffered numerous burnings in hell. But by these actions, I neither fulfill the purpose of myself or others. So, for the sake of what I wanted, life after life, I've created negative karma, which has created suffering for me. And not just any old suffering, but the suffering of hell. But through that, you know, whose purpose did I fulfill? I didn't fulfill my own purpose. I didn't fulfill anybody's purpose. Just created misery all around. course, we have to get to this, understand what he means by hell. What is hell? See, it's not some kind of dungeon somewhere that someone has put you. It's the projection of our own mind when it is in a particular state. Like you say, have a dream, and that is a particular state which we have no control of, most of it. It can be a happy dream, neutral, it can be a horrific dream. It's created by the mind, right? So hell is none other than a horrific experience projected by the mind when we no longer have the body to wake, this human body to wake up into in the morning, say after a bad dream. We wake up and say, thank God. You can then reassure yourself with all the little means we have by washing the face and brushing the teeth and making your tea or coffee and checking your WhatsApp messages, etc., you know, looking up the World Cup news. We have ways of dealing with an awful night, you know. But when we wake up in the intermediate state or in the next life after dying to this body without what we wake up to in the morning, usually, then it's a different story. But what we're experiencing is the projection of our minds, what our mind has created for us. No one else has created it for us, just as no one else created the, you know, the nightmare. We created it. It's a projection of our own mind, as is a very lovely dream or heavenly dream. That's also the creation of our mind. So we keep on creating causes for hellish experience. And as I mentioned a few sessions ago, I myself had some experiences a few years ago which were awful, mental. I mean, they didn't involve dream and they didn't involve being in any hell or being tortured by somebody, but just what the mind had created was unbelievably awful and painful. But it was not like physical pain. The mental pain was almost worse than anything I'd experienced in my life that I could remember. So it just gave me an insight into what the mind can create. That's all I'm saying. Mind is all powerful. Mind is the chief, as it says in the Dhammapada, very famous basic Buddhist text. Mind is the forerunner. Mind is the chief. The way one's mind works, that creates our reality or unreality, or what we are grasping at that moment. So anyway, we have created the cause for numerous burnings in hell, whether you take it metaphorically or kind of literally, but it's all mind created anyway. It's not God, it's not the Buddha, anyone creating it, or some evil, I don't know, stepmother, father. It's us. We create our hell. Yet now, since great meaning will accrue from harm, which is not even a fraction of that, I should indeed be solely joyful towards such suffering that dispels the harms of all. So this is the basic rationale for seeing suffering as like ice cream. We should be joyful at suffering, because through it, we are burning up a lot of garbage that would otherwise create, you know, tremendous suffering later. You know, it's like going through the inconvenience of having your wiring changed in the house, which is beginning to smell a bit, and you have it changed rather than have a massive fire in your house later, which might even burn you alive at night. So, you know, it's okay to undergo the inconvenience of people ripping out your wires and not having hot coffee for 1 or 2 mornings or whatever it is. We put up with it. Should someone else find joyous happiness in praising my enemy as an excellent person, why, mind, do you not praise them too? And likewise make yourself happy. Okay, there seems to be a change of tack here. Okay, in verses 76 to 86, he gives himself a pep talk about developing patience when his enemies are praised and he isn't. Okay. It isn't easy when someone else gets the compliments or jobs or perks or lover we want. We can't pretend it doesn't get to us. So when the talents of others are being praised, Shantideva asks, why, O mind, do you not find joy, likewise, in praising them? Now's not the time to go on automatic pilot. Instead, you could do something revolutionary. We could turn the tide and rejoice in the good fortune of others. You could say to yourself, I'm glad for them. If I were in their shoes, I'd want them to be glad for me. So when the undertow of anger or resentment is pulling me under, teaching myself the Dharma like this is sometimes the only thing that saves me from drowning. That sounds like a personal comment from Pema Chodron. The only thing that saves her from drowning is teaching oneself the Dharma like this, reflecting in a dharmic way. The only thing, otherwise we could go crazy, and people do. They murder others, because they're not getting what they want. They kill themselves for not getting what they want, the job, the marks, the person, whatever. People kill themselves for things like that, and kill others, of course. Okay, the previous verse where they say the present aches are nothing compared with those, and yet great benefits may come from them. These troubles that dispel the pains of wandering beings, how could I not rejoice in that? Let me just make that clear with another translation. And now, since great meaning will come from harm, which is not even a fraction of the harm of hell, I should indeed be solely joyful towards such suffering that dispels the harms of all. She says, when I read this, I'm reminded of the earlier part of my life and the suffering I went through around relationships. There was the pain of getting into them, even more pain getting out of them, and a tremendous amount of energy expended in between. Likewise, our careers and the other things we pursue can feel like the tortures of the realms of hell. And what do we have to show for it with the passage of time? We have even stronger habits of striving, craving, hatred, and revenge. And if we keep strengthening these old patterns, our present aches are nothing compared to those to come. So this is our chance to do something different. We've spent lifetimes trying to find happiness in ordinary samsaric ways. Now let's try working straightforwardly with the mind itself. Let's also recall that our ordinary human suffering has value. It can humble us and teach us compassion. The pain we go through while changing old habits is not only worth tolerating, it's worth celebrating. I'm reminded of someone I know who had a very difficult early period of life, lost his mother very young, and then became addicted to many substances and went through incredibly painful detox period, which lasted not just weeks, I think months. Incredible pain, physical pain, mental pain, coming off the drugs. But this person achieved that. And now I would say this person is really very, very, very special person, very fortunate person who tremendous opportunity with the Dharma. And because he's opened up, he's seen more suffering than most of us will do in this life. And he came through it. It's completely revolutionized his life in a good way. So anyway, that was just something that came to mind. Host has muted everyone, has they? Oh, that was a long time ago. Okay. Okay, folks, I think we can have some discussion now. If anyone wants, yeah, please have a break. Have a little break. Anyone who needs, take a sip of something. Yeah. No, I see you're having a sip there. Good. Mayank is there. Very good. Welcome, Mayank. Thanks for joining us, albeit little late. Is that the Mayank we know, or am I talking to an unknown person?
No, Kabirji, it's me, yes.
You, well done. How are you?
Good. I'm a little late, yes. Quite late actually. I just joined like 10 minutes ago.
I would call that very late. You're pushing it. Yeah, you're pushing it. It's like हाजिरी कराने के लिए आप बस 1 मिनट के लिए आ गए आखिर में. Yeah.
No, isn't this going to go on till 1 o'clock?
I don't know. If people leave early, then it won't. If people come late, then some people might leave early. Are you leaving early?
No, I'm here.
Yeah. Maybe it's time for some kachori. I feel hungry actually. One doesn't have to wait till the end. So this is what happens when you don't come to Tushita, you see. You miss out. You see this? It is absolutely delicious. And you see that, Jan? This is called a kachori. It is bliss. It is bliss in form. अच्छा, आप क्या ले आए?
Today is my birthday, so
Your birthday! Yay! Today is Bob's birthday. So Bob, say hello to everybody.
Hi, today is my birthday. Thank you.
So Bob is one of our very long time members. How many years you've been coming?
23 years.
23 years coming to Tushita. So that's more than anybody in this room, apart maybe Ajir ji. Ajir ji, आपको भी आपसे भी ज़्यादा है ना?
अरे इसीलिए तो उनका नाम बॉब है भाई.
इसलिए no.
Thank you, Ajir ji.
Ajir ji is just a rectangle, but he's there.
No, okay. Photo is not coming.
Photo दिखाते नहीं हो.
हाँ?
दिखाते नहीं. Yeah, camera on नहीं किया. There he is. Hey.
चलिए अभी बता देते हैं. हैप्पी बर्थडे बॉब.
Thank you, Ajir ji. Thank you, ji. Thank you. Thank you for the kind thoughts.
Chalo, we should have something sweet as well, but anyway, we have a lovely
cake
namkeen.
is sweet.
Where's the cake?
आपको दिया ना लिफाफा.
अच्छा, उसमें cake है. Cake from Bob. Eggless vanilla. What's the other one?
One is chocolate, other is vanilla.
One is so yeah, all make a wish for Bob. थोड़ा ये भी खिलाओ. So you see, there are great benefits in coming to Tushita, even though you have to deal with the airfares and traffic in Delhi. So one should make an effort to come.
बहुत टेम्पटेशन दे रहे हैं कबीर जी. क्या बात है आज.
इसी तरह से बढ़ाना है ना हम लोगों का.
हाँ.
बॉब थोड़ा काट ले यार इसको सबको
काट ले सबको. ये क्या कह रहे हो भाई.
Yeah, this is how journalists misinterpret, misquote people and create havoc. Oh, what is it? Oh, chutney भी है. देखो chutney. Yeah, I don't think I'll bother with chutney. So you see the kindness of others. And it's very kind of Bob to have his birthday today, and for people to bring the substances. So anyway, wish you were here. वो कैंडल है या नहीं पता नहीं, एक मोमबत्ती होना चाहिए. So you see, when Shantideva invites sentient beings, all sentient beings, to be his guests, it's really an amazing thing. It's like having a party where you invite people.
Wow.
The sole purpose is to make them happy, to give happiness to other people. Isn't that wonderful? And Shantideva wants us to generate that for everybody. It's amazing. Really wonderful. I must try not to get the kachori bits into my Mac apple. Very nice kachori, Sneha. So the kachoris are courtesy Sneha, who's a new student. Very good. Where are they from? Oh, in Shapurja, close to the exit, no? Yeah, yeah. Very good. You don't get things like this in Australia, Jan. An impoverished continent. No kachoris.
वो आपको मालूम है कि आप बिहार से आए हैं, आपको कचौरी पसंद है?
पसंद है? हाँ. Oh wow. Thank you. Chocolate cake. I'm so sorry for all of you that you can't have some, but we're all eating on your behalf as well. We have you in our hearts. How is the weather in Bir, Ajirji?
Fantastic.
ज़्यादा ठंड नहीं है?
नहीं.
Good. Yeah, please come to Tushita soon.
Yeah, I'm coming to Delhi tomorrow.
Oh, good. We may see you.
So after that, depending on what temptation are there for the next week.
Oh, we will have many.
Okay.
If not, we'll invent a birthday. And Bob will...
Of course, I think Glenn's teaching, I'll be definitely there.
Oh, good, good,
It
good.
will be wonderful to listen to him.
Yeah, Wednesday evening, we'll have lots of refreshments.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a real feast for body and mind that evening. Yeah. Good. So that's 6:30 to 8:30 next Wednesday, the 30th. Glenn Svensson, an excellent teacher.
Really, in that commentary, she was referring to the human life as detox period.
As what?
Detox period?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, no, she refers to...
Was she referring to the human life?
Yeah, by putting up with a relatively mild short-term suffering of the detox period, this is verse 73, we forego far greater agony. It's like a detox. You have suffering. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good what she says there. So we can talk and eat cake, actually, have our cake and eat it. You can make any comments you like within reason. Nothing? Mayank? Did you get any of the verses or you came just at the beginning of the break?
No, no, I heard I heard some bit of it. The detox part was pretty interesting actually.
You have the text with you? You have the Shantideva with you?
Yes, yes. I have the PDF.
क्या चाहिए?
Sorry. Gigi is there?
He is, yeah.
Gigi, is Matthew with you?
Is Matthew
No.
with you? No.
No, Matthew is not here. I mean, he's in Beer, but he's not here in the Deer Park presently.
He's at Beer, but not there. Yeah. So, so Mayank, what do you think? We're going to ask you a question now to make up for you coming late. You have to engage. पहले शक्ल दिखा दे यार.
Kabir ji, that I can't do today. I mean,
What
I
happened?
just woke up.
क्या हो गया?
I just woke up actually. It's no, I'm not in a presentable state, to be honest.
Not in a presentable state? क्या हो गया? झगड़ा हो गया?
No, no, nothing. I just woke up.
No, you have to show your face if you're asked a question. दिखाओ, दिखाओ.
Okay, I'll ask then. I'll ask in 10 minutes. Then maybe someone else can go on.
Are you going to shave or something?
No, no. I just woke up, Kabir ji. I don't want to horrify you.
Okay. कमाल है यार ये तो ठीक है. Go and wash your face at least. Brush your teeth. Yeah, do something. बड़ा कमाल करता है यार. Okay. Sorry, my mouth is stuffed with chocolate cake. Not good. Okay.
इतना आनंद से खाते हुए कभी नहीं देखा कबीर जी आपको.
मजा आ रहा है हाँ.
हाँ?
शांतिदेवा पढ़ रहे हैं और चॉकलेट केक खा रहे हैं. और क्या चाहिए?
हाँ, ये तो है.
It's pretty
लेकिन
good.
शांति देवा ने क्या कहा अब वो बताएंगे नहीं हम आपको.
उसने
खाने
बोला
पे.
कस्टर्ड भी होना चाहिए लेकिन कोई बात नहीं.
हाँ.
Hot custard, but that's my British conditioning. So what do you think about, I mean, I think the reasoning here, if we were to reflect on it, is very powerful. That the suffering we go through is very worthwhile, but on the other hand, to avoid, not to think, oh, then I will create suffering for others and they can purify, not like that. Do it for oneself, but as far as others are concerned, do what one can to alleviate their suffering. And if they are, Bob, Sasha. Bob. We have these backbenchers here who keep on talking during question time. Where did she? So he's saying, you know, we've been creating all these causes for hellish suffering. Now it's a chance to do something different. So why don't we also take delight in praising in others, you know, being praised, even if we don't like those people? We're doing ourselves a favor if we can be happy at it, because then we just create causes for happiness. You know, why, oh mind, do you not find joy likewise in praising them? So to repeat what she said, when the undertow of anger or resentment is pulling me under, teaching myself the dharma like this is sometimes the only thing that saves me from drowning. Matlab, drowning and suffering in samsara and creating more and more causes for suffering. The pleasure that you gain therefrom itself gives rise to stainless happiness. It's urged on us by all the holy ones. It's the perfect way of winning others. Yeah, could somebody read the translation in The Way of the Bodhisattva? In that, verse 77.
Happiness is yours. It would be a source of joy. A concept given by the Excellent One and the Supreme Assembly.
Or what others?
Assembly.
Assembly. So you see, they're saying the Buddhas would be so happy if we were to engage in. Huh? Which one have you got? Oh, that's bachelor. Okay. What's the other one?
Karmakara is the pleasure, having as a life.
Yeah,
The pleasure that is gained therefrom itself gives rise to blameless happiness. It's urged on us by all the holy ones and is the perfect way of winning others.
yeah, it seems like Pema Chodron is mainly based herself on that one translation. And she says this refers to the 4 joys of practicing patience. First of all, patience is stainless. Matlab, doesn't have many faults attached to it. Secondly, it brings happiness. Okay, that's a good reason to practice it. Thirdly, it is praised by the holy ones, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and your gurus. So for those who've taken refuge and so forth, that's a very powerful reason also. And especially for those of us who have some conviction in the teaching, because then if it's praised by the teacher of these teachings, then it's obviously something very worthwhile. Fourth, it's the perfect way to help others. Of course, on this Bodhisattva path, that's a fantastic reason. So it's stainless, it brings happiness, it's praised by the holy ones, and it's a perfect way to help others. So often, when we achieve happiness, our gain is intentionally or unintentionally someone else's loss. If we get the job, some other person doesn't. If we win the Olympic gold, others are crying because they lost. Not that we're malicious or in any way at fault, that's just the way it is. I mean, you see it now, right, in the World Cup football. I mean, it's unbelievable. Some of the images of the players rejoicing and the fans going gaga when one of their teams scores a goal or they win the match. They just go totally berserk. And then when they lose, it's like in depression. Really in depression. So, yeah. So this, even if we don't purposely step on someone else's toes, our happiness is subtly stained. You know, if we're happy in a football match through winning, the more we're happy, the more the other person, it can affect them and make them more unhappy. So the practice of patience, on the other hand, is stainless. In every case, no one loses, everyone gains. Imagine if teams at the end of a match, the losers can go up to the winners and congratulate them and feel for a moment the other person's happiness at having won and not be unhappy themselves. But of course, that takes practice, right? Not easy. Huh?
The reverse feeling as well. The
Yes.
winners feel sorry.
Yes, exactly. Good. Yeah, and the winners feel compassion and commiserate with the losers, and say you played really well and whatever. Give them some heartening words. So the practice of patience is stainless. It brings happiness. It isn't always instant pleasure, of course. Sometimes it's just the great relief of lessening our burden of rage, just being able to pause and relax instead of retaliating gradually brings unshakable well-being. We find that very few people provoke us and the world is a friendlier place. Third joy is that patience is praised by the Buddhas. In this most profound sense, this means it brings us closer to our Buddha nature or basic goodness. Yeah. The fourth joy is it enables us to communicate sanely, allows us to be heard, is thus the perfect way of winning others. In other words, we can get our message across because nobody feels threatened or accused. Mayank, are you presentable? Yeah, you're looking great. Yeah. You could definitely go on to shadi.com and be successful. First class, Ekdam theek hai. Yeah. So, do you have something to say?
I found that detox example very interesting, Kabirji. I was wondering if like mental habits, giving up mental habits also have the similar process of having to feel the pain of giving up the addiction.
What do you think?
I mean, it looks like so, but I don't know.
I mean, he's not talking mainly about physical addiction here, is he? I don't think he's
Right,
talking
but
about
yeah,
giving up smoking, or he's talking about giving up. Isn't he talking about giving up the disturbing emotions and those habits connected with that? Anyway, I mean, both things, both things. So you find that interesting?
yeah, and actually, I have been wondering like so when one tries to give up a habit, there is an associated pain with it.
Right.
And I feel that while it is Shantideva himself says that once we get familiar with something, it gets easier and easier. I feel that sometimes with addiction, the pain increases over time. Is that something that Buddhist psychology talk about?
Well, they often, I know that alternative medicine talks about it, that if you stop taking allopathic medicine, which is simply suppressing the symptoms, then temporarily things get worse when you take alternative medicines because it brings out all the garbage out of the body and the system. But then it gets better. That's just a necessary phase when all of the dirt is coming out. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Makes sense.
It
So
comes out
similar thing,
all sorts of ways.
right, right.
It's that people who do a lot of prostrations, they get a lot of physical pain, obviously, some of them, but also mental stuff comes up
Right.
because you're working with the whole emotional, pranic body, everything has been worked on with prostration. So it brings up all of the impurities within, mental, physical, and so forth. So it's some people go through a very rough time, but then it gets better. Of course, they have the benefit there of a practice they're doing again and again and again every day, which they don't stop. If you stop, then of course they're problematic. But they, especially people practicing with other people in places like Bodhgaya, say, they just keep on going. So you go through the bad bits and then you just carry on. I have friends who've done the 100,000 prostrations, and yeah, they have very tough times, but then they come through. You know, sometimes some people have to stop because of just tremendous pain in the body, but you know, many just go through and complete that. I suppose that's why the Kadampa people say that nothing happens without courage.
Sorry, say that again. Can you say that again, please?
Nothing happens without courage.
Ah,
We have to be courageous. We don't just give up when it starts getting a little difficult. If this person I knew had stopped the detox they were going through, then they'd have remained a heroin addict, you know. Whatever it was. I think it was heroin, something really bad. So they went on through. I think really very courageous. Yeah. Anybody else? Is somebody cracking their fingers somewhere? Yeah, yeah.
So like, even if we have the intention to sort of fulfill these principles, such as not getting angry, being content with what we have in life, being austere, you know, like bearing hardships with patience, and we form these intentions like in discrete moments in time, and then we forget about them so often, like especially when we're wrapped up suffering,
Mm.
or wrapped up in stress,
Mhm.
or just you lose them in the chaos and like the endless amount of distraction that comes with being human living in the modern world.
Mm.
You know, how do we, how can we, maybe we can explore like ways that we can really instill these goals or principles within ourselves so that we're not going to lose them. By how do we keep them? Because how do we remove them?
Well, that's a $64,000 question.
Yeah.
The question is asking, how do we keep on maintaining these powerful, positive aspirations and practices? Because distractions are so strong, right? So how do we keep on the, well, in one way, traditionally one might say the straight and narrow path, or how do we stay connected with the practice, with the dharma, in the face of so many distractions, right? Okay, folks, is that clear, the question? What would anyone here want to hazard an answer? Yes, Vishal.
Abhijit, I feel it's important to first practice them, and once you start practicing them, you start seeing the benefits of them. And once you start seeing the benefits, then it's difficult. If you see the benefits of something, you would want to carry on that practice, right?
Yeah.
So reflecting on the benefits and sort of practicing and actually experiencing the benefits.
So practicing and experiencing the benefits, but then how does one remember to practice? I suppose.
If you're experiencing the benefits of those things, then you've probably been practicing, right? And if you've
Right.
been practicing, you're conditioning yourself to practice these things.
Okay, so one is conditioning oneself to practice, and the practice is bringing good results, so then one continues. What if the practice brings up pain and difficulties with body and mind? Then
I think it's important to check with yourself what kind of practice is happening and probably find a teacher, somebody who can help you out with
so
understand.
the need to have a teacher, a guide. Okay. Well, yeah, that seems important or to have a sangha to connect with. Studying, reflecting, meditating, they're all aimed at this point to keep connected. But your question is a very good one, because the basic teaching is to watch the mind all the time. So how to do that? I mean, there's no other way except just to start experimenting with it, practicing it. You know, if during, for example, as is happening now, if you're a football fan and during the World Cup or some competition, you can be sure your mind is going to be on the World Cup a lot of the time, your waking time. You know, maybe you even dream about it, but waking hours you'll be thinking about it, right? So here, when we begin to investigate dharma rather than just being interested in football, say, then we begin to see the benefits of it. We begin to, get inspiration from other practitioners, from teachers, etc., from the words themselves. So then one becomes more and more interested in it and in its value, not just as something, curiosity value, but something that could really be very beneficial. So then you just keep on reminding yourself. But, and I'm speaking here from experience, the power of habit is so strong, and the power of distraction is so strong that sometimes one is just completely led astray. So one has to, again, not get upset or too self-recriminatory due to lapses, and then to keep on, come back to it. A very moralistic attitude doesn't help, because then you can feel bad very quickly by not keeping up to some kind of moral standard, which you feel you should. And then you start kicking yourself, you get depressed and guilty, because guilt is also something quite built into some of us. So then easily one can feel guilty, very upset. And so that's not a good state of mind to be in. Then when you practice due to guilt, then there's a kind of, there isn't an ease about that. We do speak of regret in Buddhism as being very important, healthy regret. But then together with that, there is that sense that, look, I have to purify for myself and also for the sake of others, out of compassion. So one isn't just caught up in some kind of small bubble of selfish regret, you know. But I think we're too uptight about many things, which it's very easy to be, and that we should be careful of. But regular practice, yeah, that seems to be, that I can vouch for. Regular practice. If we don't have some kind of regular practice, then goes out the window. But then by regular practice, I mean sitting practice. But the sitting practice is not going to work if our mind goes berserk and, you know, the rest of the 23, 22 hours a day, the mind is not being watched, then of course it's not going to help much. So just constant practice. Yeah, maybe that's.
So Vijay, I also think though that even if we are practicing every day and like maybe for 23 hours we are not practicing, but obviously still trying to be aware. But I think just the practice itself is already changing our mind in very subtle ways and training our mind such that even when we are like out on the road and, you know, some guys trying to rip us off or something and we get very angry, or in all those situations, then we are already a little more prepared to handle the situations, even if we don't immediately see the changes, but they are happening from training the mind, practicing.
You're speaking about the effects of having a daily sitting practice,
Yeah,
are you?
like instead of thinking of how we can, you know, improve ourselves in the situations, I think it's more important to focus on when we're not in those situations and when we are in a quiet space or in retreat or in like a space like this, and then what we can do to practice on our mind, and then the effects will happen naturally for others.
Yeah, for sure. To some, both are necessary, aren't they? To have the regular practice, which Nivita is saying will influence one's daily life, even though one may not see that very clearly, but it's having a subtle effect on our life and how we respond to situations. So having that daily practice, and then also during the day, remembering as much as we can.
Also, Kabirji, I feel it's important to reflect on what are the benefits you're getting out of it. Sometimes you don't reflect on the benefits and you feel like nothing is happening, but actually things are happening, but they may not be very close.
Things are, there are benefits. And also to think of the disadvantages of not doing so, you know, by reading not just chapter 1 and 3, but chapter 2 of the text, which isn't very happy reading in one way, but it's essential to look at the effects of not being mindful. Also mentioned at the beginning of chapter 5, you know, how important the mind is. And so that's the thing to work on. We may be someone very committed to bodily health, and that's great, but maybe spend a lot of time on the body, but inadequate amount of time on the mind. And even in the yoga, I think I remember Iyengar, this great teacher, saying that in the past, the great genuine yoga teachers would lament the fact that many people were practicing yoga just to be fit and feel good and so forth. This is even in old times, and therefore become somewhat arrogant as a result and forget the real meaning of the practice, which was to get closer to God or whatever, to samadhi and liberation. So, you know, remembering why we're doing it and the benefits, and just constant mindfulness, because several texts are saying that's the main point. So the end of chapter 5 that I read just now, that's making the same point, that the defining characteristic of guarding alertness in brief is only this: to examine again and again the condition of my body and mind. So it's like the defining characteristic of the dharma, you could say, not just of guarding alertness, is to watch the mind and the body. What am I doing? Of course, this is stressed a lot in monastic discipline, For example, monastics are not supposed to just walk out of their room for no reason. They should first check, why am I going? What's my purpose of going out of the room now? Where am I going? Why am I going? Then how am I going? How am I walking to where I'm going or whatever? Shouldn't just be aimlessly looking around, for example. So for monastics, it can be very strict. Not that many would follow it exactly, but it has a purpose, not to be distracted. And also, looking at the ground stops you stepping on insects and so forth. So just being mindful. And the other thing which I learned very early on, at least intellectually, when I did my first ever retreat, 5 days, retreat meaning just short teaching with other people. One English student, it was in England, someone asked the teacher, well, I can't do this, I can't practice this or whatever. It's too difficult, something like that, he said. And the teacher, who was a Tibetan teacher, it was a very clear answer that you just have to keep on trying. You have to practice again and again. It's like saying, I can't do 20 press-ups right now, Well, of course we can't if we're not trained. So you have to practice, then you can. It's as simple as that. We just have to be motivated to practice. But of course, how to be motivated? Well, we can actually begin to understand the disadvantages of the 8 worldly dharma, 8 worldly feelings, being caught up in pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, good reputation, bad reputation. If we see how those things are dominating our lives and how destructive they are to contentment and clarity and kindness and so forth, then there's more motivation to practice a bit. Not something simple.
Also, mindfulness, I think, is also similar to awareness.
To?
Awareness.
Yes.
So being like, how do you remain mindful throughout the day is also that you are aware.
Yes.
Of being mindful. Like being mindful also means being aware. And I think if there is something that you want to be mindful about, it means that you're aware of it. And I think to grow awareness about something, I think this is something that you could bring into your practice if you know that you have something that you want to be more aware of, that bring it into your daily practice and cultivating that awareness so that it will automatically be more present like throughout your day. So if you want to be aware of something that you do that you want to be brainless, like maybe, for example, getting angry or jealous or whatever negative emotion that your mind may be prone to creating, I think that it might help to cultivate the awareness within your practice so that you can be more easily mindful when it actually does occur, so that you can change your response.
The original meaning of mindfulness in the Buddhist tradition is to remember. Mindfulness, smriti in Sanskrit, means to memory, to remember, remembrance. So you're supposed to remember the instructions, remember what to do, what not to do. That's the primary meaning in the Buddhist texts. Of course, it's misused now to just mean kind of attention or, but it's actually to remember the instructions. So if one is actually practicing mindfulness, that's a wonderful thing, because you are remembering what has to be practiced and what should be avoided. Of course, one can't do that without itself having, as you say, this level of awareness. One has to be alert and awake, not on automatic pilot. And then there's also a quality of what they call introspection, which is more in terms of meditation. When is the mind getting excited? When is it getting sluggish? That is a mental factor called introspection. So all of this is necessary. And it's all linked up with how we're behaving, how much we're eating or sleeping, or all of that can help us be more aware. Yeah, Nishat.
Kabirji, can one be mindful and angry at the same time?
Not in Buddhist terms, because mindfulness, strictly speaking, would be to remember the instructions. So the instructions are never to get angry.
Even if one is aware of how one is feeling, right, and the anger arises. Often anger, for me, at least in my case, when I'm not mindful, negative emotions can come up. But if I'm mindful of what's happening in my mind, these emotions don't really come
I'm
up.
wondering, it's an interesting question, that when mindfulness kicks in, say you're getting angry, you've done a lot of sitting practice, so you are, as was mentioned earlier, you are trained, you are trained somewhat to respond in a different way. That moment when you remember the mind, when you are mindful, is anger there at that moment when you are mindful of it? That's a question to ask. Can you be mindful and angry at exactly the same time? Or there's anger, and then you remember to be mindful, and then when you're mindful, then is it there in that moment as well? That's something we have to ask someone who's...
Maybe if you're mindful, that emotion, whether anger, aversion, it may be there, but you control, but you'll realize that anger is rising. You will be in control of it rather than anger taking control. And it probably will dissolve.
It seems like there is some time when they are there together. And then the anger goes down, and then it's more the mindfulness is there. I'm not sure. It's because what is creating a confusion in my mind is this teaching, which I've had repeated to me many times, that you cannot have two basic things going on in the mind at the same time. Like you can't have anger and love, for example, simultaneously. You can have them one after the other, but not simultaneously. But anger and mindfulness, that's another thing. Because there's always, there are certain omnipresent mental factors, aren't there? One of which is attention. And there are four others, so don't ask me right now. But there are omnipresent mental factors all the time, right? But mindfulness is not one of them. But I'm not saying that it couldn't coexist with anger. But the more the mindfulness kicked in, I don't see how there could be that anger still there. Because with the power of attention, just paying attention to the anger, then the anger dissolves. Because actually, if one is letting go of the storyline, we're just watching the anger as energy, then it just dissolves.
Attention is one of the five omnipresent.
It is, yeah. I think intention, attention, feeling, discrimination, yeah.
I guess there are two components to anger. There is the anger that is present inside the mind, and then there is the anger that is present within the body, where like, I don't know, is it adrenaline or something like that? That is being, and that might take longer to subside.
Could do, yeah.
The way the body is.
Yeah, I've heard that people who do a lot of vipassana, they can get certain specific physical symptoms, which is connected with anger. And then working through that, then that dissolves, and then they feel a lot of even blissful sensations when that is, goes, or at least, tremendous relief when that pain goes. So a lot of it is lodged, as you say, yeah, within the body. I think some alternative techniques based on that, aren't they? Working with the various traumas that are held in the body. So some very vigorous techniques also are there to work with that. I think rolfing is one, where there's very powerful kind of massage technique which helps release the holding in the very muscles of the body. Yeah. Okay, we got our money's worth today, folks. It's 1 o'clock and gone. Swatantra ji, aap kahan par hain? Where are you, Swatantra? I see you there. Where are you joining us from? You'll have to unmute yourself. Can't hear you. No, you have to unmute. You know how to unmute? No, you're not unmuted. Or you can type your message. Ke aap kahan par hain? You know how to do that? You're in Delhi. Okay, good, good. Anyway, I hope some of it was useful. Ajirji, mindfulness is a virtuous mental factor. It is a virtuous, it's one of the virtuous mental factors, yeah, not one of the omnipresent ones. So then we ask, is a virtuous and a non-virtuous mental factor, can they arise simultaneously in the mind? What do you think, Ajirji? ये विशद का जो सवाल है, इसका क्या जवाब है? स्मृति और क्रोध एक साथ रह सकते हैं दिमाग में? Ajirji is spacing out on the beer air.
Hello. No, they can't exist simultaneously.
Acha, that's a definitive comment from a master's student or what?
That is a definitive statement passed down from Geshe Dorje Damdul, who had got it from the Nalanda masters.
But then it's interesting. Then what is the process whereby anger can be dissipated? You remember?
Anger can be dissipated.
How does mindfulness arise? Say you're angry and you have been practicing mindfulness and other things in your sitting practice, and out in the street you get angry with the rickshawala. So then explain the process whereby mindfulness comes in and the anger dissipates, and how come they're not simultaneous for at least some time? This is
no, immediately. I think it looks like that they are simultaneous, but they are sequential. Mental consciousness is moving so fast. It's like the waterfall, you can say. Each droplet of the waterfall is different.
So just take me through the steps of mindfulness arising and anger dissipating in the example.
Yeah.
So
The moment I see something, and from that seeing, there's the feeling which is unpleasant, and then the anger arises.
Right.
So if I'm mindful at that time, then there is no continuum of that anger. It dissolves.
So you're saying the mindfulness arises through the power of habituation.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That is why it is in the category of the 11 mental virtuous factors.
So then the moment it arises, you're saying, at that moment the anger dissolves.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because anger continues, because when there's the anger, we are not aware of that.
We're aware and we don't care. We're not trained. We just keep on thinking about the cause of the anger and it keeps on going. That's what often happens, no?
Cause of the anger?
I mean, we keep on thinking.
Then it is thinking.
We keep on arguing with the rickshawala or whatever. We just keep on.
No, then it is thinking. Then it is not mindfulness.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Mindfulness is direct.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Take it. There's food for thought. We'll think about it. While I'm
surely.
Finishing my chocolate.
I'll also think over.
So can mindfulness coexist with greed and lust for chocolate cake?
No.
No. Oh dear. I'm offering it to the guru, yeah. Okay. Merve from Turkey, yes.
Yes.
Your
I can add something.
Please.
Can we say that mindfulness is in some way knowing what we are experiencing while we are experiencing?
That's how people usually understand it, but it's not the traditional meaning.
Yes.
But yeah, people are using that meaning now, just to be aware
Yeah. What
of what's
happens?
happening.
What happens with me, not all the time, but sometimes, like when anger is here, I just realize that anger is here and I ask myself, okay, how I am experiencing this anger? What's going on in my body? There is the contraction on my chest. You know, my face is in an ugly situation. There are a lot of expressions, and my body is sitting like this. And what are the thoughts coming, passing in my mind? I think that this person is rude, and blah blah blah. And I ask myself, okay, what can be the helpful response? What can be helpful to me to remember, or just to do at this moment? And it's labeling these things like thoughts and going what is going in the body, and just taking a space and asking myself, okay, what would be helpful to remember or to do at this moment, most of the time helps to reduce the temper of the anger.
Okay, good, good.
But
Yeah,
not all the time, of course.
paying attention. This is very much what I think Krishnamurti also says, this great Indian sage, you see, wise person. Said, yeah, just bathing something in undistracted attention, paying attention to it without getting distracted by the story, by the images and thoughts, just paying attention to the sensation of anger. And then it has nowhere to go. I mean, it just dissolves. It can't stay because that's its nature. Anger only stays with us because we keep on feeding it with the thinking process and thoughts of so many kinds of thoughts. Thank you. That's good.
Yeah, I think if you get angry, it will be difficult. And if you are mindful, it will be difficult.
Pradeep ji is saying if you're mindful, then it's difficult to get angry. And if you're angry, it's difficult to be mindful. Yeah. So you are agreeing with Ajir ji. They cannot coexist.
I think if you're mindful, you will know why anger is. Once you know why, if it is arising, you won't get angry. You then realize the causes and conditions which are arise. So it won't arise.
If you realize, does anger go away when you remember why you're angry, or by just letting go of that and just
maybe through training you are trained, you realize you're getting angry and you then try to become mindful. Because you have trained yourself. If you're not trained, you just takes hold of you and then
sure
the consequences.
Sure. But I'm questioning whether intellectually remembering the cause of it is really going to help much.
Not I think at that moment. Because you get angry, it's difficult intellectually.
No, I'm saying.
You're not going to think the anger possesses.
You said at one point understanding where it came from.
Yeah, but if you're mindful, then you are like all the time mindful. I think very.
Yeah.
For people like us, for me.
Kabir ji.
Remains mindful and it's trained enough, like you will never have anger.
Who was that? Was that Ajir ji? कोई कह रहा था कुछ? Somebody? I heard somebody. Okay. Yeah. I mean, what complicates everything, it seems, is the mental elaboration. Thinking, one has to stop all that and just focus on the sensation, on the energy, and then it's just energy. Anger is just energy. Then it's not directed at anything or anyone, and it could even be used to provide, fuel rather than be destructive. You see what I'm saying? But if we have an object, oh, I'm angry because this happened or that person or this event, then there's no end to that. even if you may understand it, meaning I understand why that person, well, of course, it depends how deep one's reasoning is. If you understand that person got angry with you because they're having a terrible time in their own life and so on and so forth, then it could even lead very quickly to, generating very different kind of thoughts towards them, more compassionate thoughts. But usually our thinking process doesn't help the situation. It just makes it go on and on. Anyway, this is all very good food for thought. Maybe next session I've read some of what Dalai Lamaji says in his book Healing Anger, which is specifically a commentary on Shantideva's 6th chapter, I think. Yeah, in fact, I should have been referring to this occasionally to see what His Holiness says. We can do that next time. Yeah. So maybe we stop here. There's always more to discuss, but for now, I think good. So thank you, everyone, for joining from Bir, from Delhi, from Turkey, and from Australia, and all the other places. And those of us here at Tushita who took the trouble to come to Tushita, Delhi. Let's dedicate for the happiness and welfare of all sentient beings that we begin to really understand these teachings and are able to put them into practice, realizing that that's the most skillful and best thing to do. And it will create more and more happiness for ourselves and others. We dedicate never to be separated from authentic dharma, authentic teachers. May all our great teachers have long and healthy lives, and all their holy wishes be fulfilled. Please pray also, especially for Suresh Jindal, who passed away, and for Mirza Yassin Beg, who started the Midland bookshops in Delhi. May they have peaceful transition to good human rebirths, where they may meet with the Dharma. They both brought a lot of happiness and pleasure for people in their lives. So hopefully they've created a lot of very good causes to have future happiness. So may that happen. Then all the other beings who are sick or ill, may they be well. May our lives be most meaningful for others in all sorts of ways. Okay, so next session tomorrow evening, 6:30. Those who want to join, we'll continue with this text. Yeah. Thank you all very much. Take care.